The Montana wilderness burned with an intensity that turned night into day. Captain Jack Morrison stood at the edge of the firebreak, his weathered face reflecting the orange glow of the inferno that threatened to devour everything in its path. 20 years of fighting wildfires had taught him to read the language of flames, but tonight something was different. The fire wasn't moving like any natural blaze he'd ever encountered. "Base, this is Morrison," he spoke into his radio, eyes fixed on an unusual blue glow emanating from the heart of the inferno. "We've got unusual activity in Sector 7. Request permission to investigate with Team Alpha." The radio crackled with static before responding. "Negative, Captain. Fire's too volatile. Pull back to the safety zone." Jack clenched his jaw, watching as the strange azure light pulsed again. His instincts screamed that something was wrong, beyond wrong. "With respect, Command, there's something out there. People could be trapped." A long pause followed. "You have 15 minutes, Morrison. Then I want you and your team out of there, understood?" "Copy that." Jack turned to his team, 4 of the best wildland firefighters in the service. "Gear up. We're going in." They moved through the burning forest like ghosts in their fire-resistant gear, following Jack's lead. The heat was intense, but the protective equipment held. As they approached the source of the blue light, the air changed. It became charged, like the moment before a lightning strike. Through the smoke and flames, they found it, a massive metallic structure, partially embedded in the ground. It was like nothing Jack had ever seen, its surface decorated with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move in the firelight. But what caught his attention was the faint tapping coming from inside. "Someone's alive in there," he shouted over the roar of the flames. "Rodriguez, Peters, set up a perimeter. Chen, Williams, you're with me." The structure's surface was cool to the touch despite the surrounding inferno. As they circled it, they found what appeared to be a damaged section, warped and torn as if from impact. The tapping grew more urgent. "Stand back," Jack ordered, pulling out his rescue saw. The metal yielded surprisingly easily to the blade, almost as if it wanted to be cut. As the last piece fell away, they found themselves face to face with something impossible. The creature was tall and slender, with iridescent skin that shifted colors like oil on water. Its large, multifaceted eyes reflected their flashlights in a rainbow of colors. It was clearly injured, purple fluid seeping from a wound in what appeared to be its torso. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the alien reached out with a 6-fingered hand, making a sound that somehow conveyed desperation despite being unlike anything human. Jack didn't hesitate. "Help me get it out," he ordered, already moving forward. The alien was surprisingly light despite its size, its body temperature notably cooler than a human's. As they extracted it from the wreckage, the forest fire intensified around them, driven by winds that seemed to come from nowhere. The alien's ship began to emit a high-pitched whine. "It's going to blow," Williams shouted, already backing away. Jack looked at the alien in his arms, seeing not a creature from another world but simply someone who needed help. "Run," he commanded his team, cradling the alien closer as he sprinted through the burning woods. They barely made it 50 yards before the explosion lit up the night sky. The shockwave knocked them off their feet, but Jack managed to twist his body to protect the alien from the impact. As they lay there in the ash-filled air, the alien's hand touched his face with surprising gentleness. Images flooded Jack's mind, a distant world of crystalline towers, a desperate escape from something terrible, and overwhelming gratitude. The alien was communicating directly into his thoughts. "Base, this is Morrison," he radioed, his voice hoarse from smoke. "We're going to need a secure medical evacuation. And, you're not going to believe what we found." In the days that followed, as government agencies descended and the media exploded with news of first contact, Jack found himself thinking about that moment in the burning forest. He had acted on pure instinct, treating the alien like any other person in need of rescue. Maybe that was humanity's greatest strength, the ability to extend compassion beyond the boundaries of species. The alien, who later introduced itself as Zar-El through a sophisticated translation device, became Earth's first official extraterrestrial diplomat. But more importantly to Jack, it became his friend. Their encounter in the flames had broken down barriers that might have taken generations to overcome through traditional diplomatic channels. As Jack sat beside Zar-El's recovery pod in the secure facility that had been hastily established, he realized that sometimes the greatest moments in history didn't come from careful planning or grand gestures, but from simple acts of human decency in the face of the unknown. "Your people are remarkable," Zar-El communicated through their now established mental link. "Where I come from, such selfless action would be considered a sign of weakness." Jack smiled, remembering the inferno they'd escaped together. Sometimes the greatest strength is showing kindness when you have every reason not to. The alien's color shifted to a deep blue that Jack had learned indicated deep thought. "Perhaps that is why my people need yours, Jack Morrison. We have mastered the stars, but you have mastered something far more valuable." As the sun set outside the facility's windows, casting the room in the same orange glow as that fateful night, Jack couldn't help but wonder what other mysteries awaited in the vast expanse of space. But he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, humanity's greatest assets wouldn't be its technology or weapons, but its capacity for compassion, courage, and connection. The wildfire that had brought them together was finally contained, but its impact would burn forever in the annals of human history, the night when humanity's heart proved stronger than its fears, and the stars themselves seemed a little less distant. Breaking the ice. The secure facility nestled in the Rocky Mountains had become a hub of unprecedented activity in the month following Zar-El's rescue. Behind its reinforced walls, two worlds were cautiously learning to understand each other. Jack Morrison found himself in an unusual position, no longer just a firefighter, but now humanity's unofficial ambassador to their first alien visitor. The morning air was crisp as Jack made his way through the facility's corridors, nodding to the various scientists and military personnel who had become familiar faces. He carried a tablet loaded with Earth's historical records, something that had become a daily ritual in his meetings with Zar-El. He found the alien in what had become known as the integration chamber, a room specially designed to accommodate Zar-El's unique biological needs. The alien's iridescent skin was showing patterns of green and gold today, colors Jack had learned indicated curiosity and anticipation. "Your world's history continues to fascinate me," Zar-El communicated through their mental link, a connection that had grown stronger with each passing day. Such rapid technological advancement in mere centuries. "My people took millennia to achieve similar progress." Jack settled into his usual chair, noting how the alien's temporary quarters had gradually accumulated various Earth artifacts, books, photographs, even a small potted plant that Zar-El found particularly intriguing. "We're adaptable," Jack replied. "Sometimes too much so. Our history isn't all progress and achievement." The alien's skin rippled with a pattern Jack hadn't seen before. "You speak of your wars, your conflicts. Yet even these reveal something remarkable about humans." Zar-El moved closer, its movements fluid and graceful despite its towering height. "You learn from your mistakes. You feel remorse. You seek redemption." Before Jack could respond, Dr. Marcus Rivera, the facility's lead xenobiologist, entered the room. His usually composed demeanor was visibly shaken. "Captain Morrison, we need to talk. Privately." Jack glanced at Zar-El, who had shifted to a deep purple, concern. "Whatever you need to say, Doc, you can say it in front of both of us." Rivera hesitated, then nodded. "We've detected another object entering Earth's atmosphere. Its signature matches Zar-El's ship." The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees as Zar-El's skin turned a stark white, fear. "They found me," the alien's mental voice wavered. "I had hoped. I had prayed to be wrong." Jack moved closer to his friend. "Who's found you? What aren't you telling us?" The story that emerged over the next hour changed everything they thought they knew. Zar-El's people, the Nexari, were not the unified civilization they had initially believed. A civil war had been raging for decades between those who sought to preserve their traditional isolationist ways and those who believed in connection with other species. My crash was no accident, Zar-El revealed, its skin now a turbulent mix of colors. Was part of a resistance movement. We discovered plans to prevent any interaction with emerging civilizations through permanent means. They want to destroy us, Jack said flatly. It wasn't a question. Not all of my people. But the preservers, they see your potential as a threat. Your capacity for rapid advancement, your ability to unite despite differences, Zar-El turned to Jack, your compassion. They fear what they don't understand. Dr. Rivera was already on his phone, presumably alerting higher authorities, but Jack's focus remained on his alien friend. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Because I had to be sure, Zar-El's mental voice was heavy with emotion. Sure that humans were truly different from what the preservers claimed. That you weren't simply clever animals who would turn on each other at the first sign of a greater threat. Jack, what you did that night in the fire, no one has ever shown such kindness to an outsider in all our recorded history. The implications were staggering. Earth's first contact with alien life wasn't just a milestone in human history, it was now potentially a prelude to conflict with a technologically superior civilization. How long do we have? Jack asked, his firefighter's instincts kicking in, assess the threat, plan the response. The ship I detected will arrive in 3 days, Rivera interjected, looking up from his phone. The president is being briefed as we speak. Zar-El moved to the window, gazing at the mountain landscape. There will be more ships. The preservers never send just one. What I don't understand is why they've shown their hand so soon. Unless. The alien's skin suddenly shifted to a deep crimson, realization and horror. Unless they're not coming for me at all. They're coming because of what you did, Jack. You proved them wrong about humanity, and that makes you more dangerous than any weapon. Jack stood beside his friend, watching as clouds gathered over the mountains. Then we'll prove them wrong again. Together. You don't understand, Zar-El turned to face him. The preservers have technology that could turn your atmosphere to acid, your oceans to steam. They've done it before, to worlds they deemed too dangerous to allow into the galactic community. Maybe, Jack agreed. But they've never faced humanity before. And more importantly, he placed a hand on Zar-El's arm, feeling the slight electrical tingle that always accompanied contact with the alien skin. They've never faced humanity and the Nexari resistance working together. Dr. Rivera cleared his throat. I hate to interrupt, but there's something else. Our deep space arrays have picked up multiple signals. Whatever's coming, it's bigger than one ship. As if in response to his words, the facility's lights flickered, and a low hum began to build in the air. Zar-El's skin shifted to a color Jack had never seen before, a deep, swirling mixture of black and silver. They're already here, the alien whispered in their minds. What you've detected, those are just the scouts. Jack Morrison had faced down wildfires that could devour cities, but as he stood there, processing the magnitude of what they were facing, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years, pure, undiluted fear. Not for himself, but for his entire species. Yet alongside that fear was something else, determination. The same force that had driven him into a burning forest to save an unknown life now steeled his resolve to face whatever was coming. Then we better start planning, he said, his voice steady. Because if they think humanity will go quietly, they're about to learn just how wrong they are. The war room deep within the Rocky Mountain facility hummed with tension as holographic displays showed the approaching Nexari fleet. In just 48 hours, the scouts had multiplied into an armada that blanketed Earth's orbital space. Jack Morrison stood before the assembled military and scientific leaders, his presence a reminder of humanity's first contact with their new reality. The preserver's tactical approach is methodical. Zar-El's mental voice resonated through the room, the alien skin shifting through shades of tactical readiness, deep blues and grays. They will begin with a display of force, hoping to inspire surrender without resistance. General Diana Hayes, the newly appointed head of Earth's Unified Defense Initiative, stepped forward. Her weathered face showed the strain of countless emergency meetings and sleepless nights. And if we don't surrender? Then they will proceed with atmospheric manipulation. Zar-El's skin rippled with remembered horror. They have perfected the art of making planets uninhabitable while preserving their resources. Jack watched as the room absorbed this information. Fear was present, but he saw something else in the faces around him, the same determination he'd felt in that burning forest. Humanity had spent its entire existence fighting against extinction, whether from natural disasters, diseases, or its own worst impulses. This was just another fire to fight. We've detected unusual energy signatures in the upper atmosphere, Dr. Rivera reported, pulling up new data streams. They're positioning something at strategic points around the globe. Atmospheric processors, Zar-El confirmed. Once activated, they will begin altering your air composition. You have perhaps 72 hours before the changes become irreversible. General Hayes's voice cut through the murmurs of dismay. Then we have 72 hours to stop them. Dr. Rivera, what about the defense system you and Zar-El have been developing? The scientist adjusted his glasses nervously. The prototype is ready, but untested. We've combined Nexary energy manipulation technology with our existing missile defense systems, but... But what? Jack prompted, knowing time was running out. But we only have enough specialized material for 3 units, Rivera admitted. Zar-El's ship didn't contain much of the crucial element we needed. The alien moved to the central holographic display, its tall form casting shadows across the strategic projections. There is another source, Zar-El communicated, skin shifting to a determined gold. My people maintain a forward base on your moon's dark side. It would have the materials we need. The room erupted in shocked discussions. A lunar base? How had it remained undetected? The preservers use quantum camouflage technology, Zar-El explained. But I know its weaknesses. With a small team, we could infiltrate the facility. Jack stepped forward before anyone else could speak. I'm going. Captain Morrison, General Hayes began, you're not trained for. I'm going, Jack repeated firmly. Zar-El trusts me, and I trust them. We've faced impossible odds together before. The general studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Assemble your team. You have 6 hours before launch. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation. Jack found himself in a crash course on operating in zero gravity, while a specialized team of Navy SEALs and Air Force combat controllers was assembled. The plan was audacious. They would use a modified spacecraft, enhanced with Zar-El's knowledge, to approach the dark side of the moon under the cover of the preserver's own sensor interference. As Jack suited up in the advanced space suit developed from Nexary technology, he felt Zar-El's presence in his mind. The alien's thoughts carried an undercurrent of emotion he hadn't sensed before. You're worried, Jack observed, checking his equipment one final time. The preservers are not known for mercy, Zar-El responded, skin shifting to deep purple concern. If we're captured. Then we won't get captured, Jack said simply. I didn't pull you out of that burning wreck just to give up now. The launch window was approaching rapidly. The small team gathered in the spacecraft's cabin, Jack, Zar-El, for Special Forces operators, and Dr. Rivera, who had insisted on coming to handle the technical aspects of their mission. As the countdown began, Jack felt the weight of what they were attempting. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore, they were fighting for the right to determine their own destiny as a species. The spacecraft lifted off under cover of darkness, its modified engines nearly silent thanks to Nexary technology. As they ascended through the atmosphere, the true scale of the invasion became clear. Hundreds of preserver ships hung in orbit like artificial stars, their formations creating complex geometric patterns against the black of space. "They're beautiful," Lieutenant Sarah Cooper, one of the Special Forces operators, whispered. "In a terrifying way." "Beauty and terror often walk hand in hand," Zar-El communicated, guiding their ship through a complex series of maneuvers to avoid detection. "My people forgot that truth long ago. We sought to eliminate terror by controlling beauty, to prevent chaos by enforcing order." Their ship slipped past the preserver fleet, using their own sensor interference as cover. The moon grew larger in their viewport, its scarred surface a testament to billions of years of cosmic impacts. Somewhere on its dark side waited their objective, and possibly humanity's last hope. "Energy spike!" Dr. Rivera called out suddenly. "They're activating the atmospheric processors." Through the viewport, they could see strange aurora-like patterns beginning to form in Earth's upper atmosphere. The preservers had begun their attack ahead of schedule. "They must have detected our launch," Zar-El's skin pulsed with urgent patterns. "We have less time than we thought." Jack checked his weapon, a hybrid design combining human and Nexari technology. "Then we better not waste it." "How long until we reach the base?" 30 minutes, Zar-El responded. "But we'll have company before then." Multiple pursuit craft launching from the fleet. As if to emphasize the point, the ship's warning systems began to sound. On their tactical display, several red dots appeared, moving rapidly in their direction. Jack shared a look with his team. They were trained for Earth's battlefields, not space combat, but the determination in their eyes told him everything he needed to know. Whatever came next, they would face it together. "Well," Jack said, managing a slight smile, "I always wanted to see the moon up close." The pursuit ships drew closer as their small craft raced across the lunar surface, and Jack couldn't help but think that sometimes the biggest fires started from the smallest sparks. One act of rescue in a burning forest had led to this moment, where the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. As they prepared for what was to come, Jack felt Zar-El's consciousness brush against his own, sharing not just thoughts but emotions, determination, fear, hope, and something else, something that felt remarkably like love for humanity's indomitable spirit. "Whatever happens," the alien communicated to all of them, "you have already proven the preservers wrong. Humanity deserves its place among the stars." The moon's dark side loomed before them, and with it, the next chapter in humanity's greatest challenge. The real question wasn't whether they would survive, but what they would become in the process of fighting for their right to exist. The lunar surface stretched before them like a sea of gray ash as their damaged ship made an emergency landing half a kilometer from the hidden Nexari base. They had survived the space battle, but not without cost, 2 pursuit ships destroyed, their own vessel's engines failing, and Lieutenant Cooper nursing a wound from where a piece of shrapnel had pierced her suit. "The base's entrance is concealed within that ridge," Zar-El communicated, their skin flickering between tactical readiness and concern. "But they will have detected our approach." Jack checked Cooper's suit seals one more time. "How's the pain, Lieutenant?" "Nothing I can't handle, sir," she responded, though her voice was tight. "Just don't expect me to run any marathons." They moved across the lunar surface in practiced formation, their modified suits allowing greater mobility than traditional space gear. Dr. Rivera monitored their oxygen levels while the remaining 2 Special Forces operators, Master Sergeant Chen and Captain Rodriguez, took point and rear guard respectively. The silence of the moon was absolute, broken only by their breathing and the occasional crackle of their comms. Above them, Earth hung in the black sky like a jewel, now surrounded by the ominous glow of the preserver's atmospheric processors. "Movement," Chen's voice cut through the silence. Multiple signatures emerging from the ridge. They barely had time to take cover behind a cluster of boulders before energy beams sliced through the space they had occupied. The preserver's defense force had arrived, tall, crystalline figures similar to Zar-El but with skin that reflected the starlight like polished mirrors. "Preserver elite guards," Zar-El's mental voice was grim. They will not stop until we are dead or captured. Jack checked his hybrid weapon. Then we better not give them either option. Rivera, how long do you need to reach the material storage once we're inside? 10 minutes, maybe 15 to locate and extract what we need. You'll have 5, Jack decided. Cooper, can you still shoot? She chambered a round in her modified rifle. Just point me in the right direction, sir. What followed was unlike any battle in human history. The lunar surface became a deadly dance of energy beams and hybrid ammunition, with both sides using the moon's low gravity to their advantage. The Preserver guards moved with inhuman grace, but humanity's warriors had something they didn't expect: adaptability. They're trying to flank us, Rodriguez called out, firing a burst that forced one of the crystalline warriors back. Jack saw the pattern in their movement. They're not trying to flank us, they're herding us away from the base entrance. Zar-El, can you get through their formation? The alien's skin pulsed with battle-ready patterns. Not alone. But together. Jack understood immediately. Their mental link had grown stronger over the past days, and now they moved as one, anticipating each other's actions. Chen, Rodriguez, covering fire on my mark. Cooper, protect Rivera. Everyone else, watch and learn. What happened next would later be described in a dozen different ways by those who witnessed it. Jack and Zar-El launched themselves forward, using the moon's low gravity to cover ground in impossible arcs. Their movements were perfectly synchronized. Where Jack fired, Zar-El was already moving to take advantage of the distraction, and where Zar-El's energy pulses forced the enemy to dodge, Jack was there to exploit their compromised positions. They carved a path through the Preserver lines like a blade through silk, each movement building on the last until they reached the hidden entrance. Rivera rushed forward with Cooper covering him, while Chen and Rodriguez maintained suppressing fire. The door controls are encrypted, Rivera shouted, his fingers flying over the alien interface. Move, Zar-El commanded, placing their hand on the panel. Their skin began to glow with an intense inner light, and Jack felt a surge of pain through their mental link as the alien forced their way through the security protocols. The door slid open with a hiss of escaping atmosphere, revealing a crystalline corridor that seemed to be grown rather than built. They rushed inside as more Preserver forces converged on their position. We need to split up, Jack decided quickly. Rivera, Cooper, find that material. Chen, Rodriguez, hold this entrance. Zar-El and I will find the control center and disable their communications. They can't be allowed to warn the fleet. As they separated, Jack felt the weight of everything at stake. Earth's atmosphere was already beginning to change. They had perhaps an hour before the damage became irreversible. An hour to save not just humanity, but perhaps the future of both their species. The base's interior was a maze of crystalline corridors and chambers that seemed to shift and change as they moved through them. Jack and Zar-El encountered resistance, but their connection had grown so strong that they fought as a single entity, human adaptability combining with Nexary precision to overcome every obstacle. They found the control center defended by a contingent of senior Preservers, their crystalline forms more elaborate and their weapons more powerful than those they had faced outside. The battle that followed was brutal and swift, with Jack and Zar-El moving in perfect harmony. The fleet must be warned, one of the Preservers spoke in Jack's mind, their mental voice filled with cold certainty. Your species is too dangerous to be allowed to survive. You change too quickly, adapt too readily. You would bring chaos to the ordered cosmos. You're right, Jack replied, firing a precise burst that shattered the Preserver's shoulder. We do bring chaos. We bring change. But that's not a weakness, it's our greatest strength. Zar-El's mental voice joined his, addressing their own people. Look at what they've accomplished in mere centuries. Look at how they face impossible odds without surrendering. They could teach us so much if we would only listen. The last Preserver fell, and they rushed to the control interfaces. Zar-El began the process of shutting down the base's communications while Jack watched their backs. Through their link, he could feel the aliens' growing concern. The atmospheric processors, Zar-El communicated. They're reaching critical phase. Even if Rivera finds the materials we need. We'll make it, Jack insisted. We always do. A new alarm began to sound throughout the base, and Jack's blood ran cold as Zar-El translated its meaning. The preservers had initiated the base's self-destruct sequence. They had 10 minutes to get what they needed and escape before the entire facility was atomized. Rivera, Jack called through the comms. Please tell me you found it. Static filled the channel for a heart-stopping moment before the scientist's voice broke through. We got it. But Cooper's down, her wound reopened. We need help getting back to the entrance. Jack looked at Zar-El, whose skin had taken on the deep purple of concern mixed with the gold of determination. No words needed to be exchanged, they both knew what had to be done. They ran through the disintegrating base, their steps perfectly matched as corridors began to collapse around them. Time was running out not just for them, but for every living thing on Earth. Yet in that moment of supreme crisis, Jack felt something unexpected through his link with Zar-El, hope, bright and unshakable, for the future their two species might forge together. If they survived the next 10 minutes. Beyond the stars. 9 minutes to total base destruction. 8 minutes until Earth's atmosphere became irreversibly toxic. Jack Morrison and Zar-El raced through collapsing crystalline corridors, following the weak signal from Rivera's communicator. The lunar facility was tearing itself apart around them, the preserver's self-destruct sequence methodically unraveling the very molecular bonds that held the structure together. They found Rivera and Cooper in a junction where 3 corridors met, the lieutenant barely conscious as Rivera tried to support her weight. The case containing their precious cargo, the material needed to power Earth's defenses, was clutched tightly in Cooper's other hand. The main exit is blocked, Rivera shouted over the growing chaos. The collapse started there first. Zar-El's skin pulsed with rapid calculations, shifting through patterns Jack had never seen before. There is another way. The emergency launch tubes, they're meant for escape pods, but they'll have to do, Jack finished, already moving to take Cooper's other side. Chen, Rodriguez, do you copy? Get back to the ship and prep for immediate launch. The response came through broken and staticky. Already, ship ready, hurry. They half-carried, half-dragged Cooper through the disintegrating base, following Zar-El's lead. The aliens' knowledge of preserver architecture was proving invaluable, but even they couldn't predict where the next collapse would come. Twice they had to backtrack as entire sections of corridor disappeared into crystalline dust. 6 minutes remaining. The launch tube facility was a vast chamber filled with transparent cylinders that stretched up through the lunar surface. Most were already destroyed, but one remained intact. It's meant for single-occupant launch, Zar-El communicated, their skin showing stress patterns. We'll have to modify the safety protocols. Jack helped lower Cooper to the ground while Rivera began working with Zar-El on the launch tube's controls. Through their mental link, he could feel his alien friend's growing concern. Something wasn't right. The tube can't handle all of us, Jack realized, reading the alien's thoughts. Can it? Zar-El's skin shifted to a deep, sorrowful blue. No. The mass limitations are hardwired. 3 at most. 4 people. 1 tube. 3 minutes remaining. Then the choice is simple, Jack said, his voice firm. Cooper has the materials we need. Rivera knows how to use them. You're the only one who can convince your people to stop this madness. I'll find another way out. No. The force of Zar-El's mental shout made them all wince. There is no other way. The base will completely atomize in. Their skin rippled with calculations, 2 minutes and 47 seconds. Jack smiled, the same smile he'd worn when he'd first pulled Zar-El from the burning wreckage of their ship. Then we better stop wasting time arguing. Rivera, get Cooper in that tube. That's an order. The scientist looked like he wanted to protest but moved to comply. As he secured Cooper, Jack turned to Zar-El, feeling the aliens' turmoil through their link. Your people need you, Jack said softly. Earth needs you. Sometimes the greatest victory is making sure the right people survive to fight another day. The base shuddered violently, crystals shattering around them like a rainfall of diamonds. 2 minutes remaining. Zar-El's skin had turned almost transparent, their emotion too complex for color. You taught me what it means to be truly strong, they communicated. Not through power or control, but through sacrifice and love. Then honor that lesson, Jack replied. Save my world. Show your people a better way. The alien moved with sudden decision, placing both hands on Jack's temples. The mental link between them exploded into something far deeper, memories, emotions, entire lifetimes of experience flowing between them in an instant. What you taught me will not be forgotten, Zar-El promised. Then, with strength born of desperation, they shoved Jack into the launch tube alongside Cooper and Rivera. No. Jack tried to fight his way out, but Zar-El had already sealed the tube. My people began this, the alien communicated, their mental voice filled with peace and purpose. It is right that one of us should end it. Tell them our story, Jack Morrison. Tell them how a human taught a preserver what it truly means to preserve life. The launch sequence initiated. The last thing Jack saw before the tube shot them toward the surface was Zar-El's skin blazing with every color imaginable, a final display of the beauty their species was capable of. They reached the ship with 30 seconds to spare. As Chen and Rodriguez got them airborne, Jack watched through tear-filled eyes as the preserver base imploded, taking with it one of the noblest beings he had ever known. But Zar-El's sacrifice was not in vain. The material they had recovered allowed Earth to deploy its hybrid defense system, destroying the atmospheric processors before the changes became permanent. The preserver fleet, faced with this unprecedented resistance and learning of the loss of their lunar base, was forced to reassess. In the days that followed, as Earth's atmosphere cleared and humanity began to breathe easily again, something remarkable happened. Other Nexari ships appeared, not preservers, but members of the resistance movement Zar-El had spoken of. They came not to fight, but to talk, inspired by the stories they had heard of cooperation between their species. 1 month after the battle for Earth's survival, Jack stood before the United Nations, preparing to address not just humanity's leaders but representatives from a dozen Nexari resistance worlds. He carried with him a small crystal, its surface shifting with colors that reminded him of his friend. We stand at a crossroads, he began, his voice carrying the weight of everything they had experienced. Not just as individual species, but as sentient beings who share this vast cosmos. We can choose the path of the preservers, control, isolation, fear of change. Or we can choose a different way. The crystal in his hand pulsed with familiar colors, hope, determination, love. A friend taught me that true strength isn't found in domination or uniformity. It's found in our willingness to reach across the divide, to risk everything for what we believe in, to sacrifice for something greater than ourselves. Earth will join the galactic community not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals. We will share our adaptability, our creativity, our chaos, yes, even our chaos, and in return, we will learn from the wisdom of ages. In the years that followed, humanity reached for the stars not with weapons but with open hands. The Nexari resistance, inspired by Zar-El's sacrifice, began a transformation of their own society. The preservers' influence waned as more and more of their people saw the value in change, in growth, in the beautiful uncertainty of true cooperation. And on a quiet hill in Montana, where a forest had once burned and 2 worlds first touched, a memorial stands. It's a simple thing, a crystalline sculpture that shifts colors with the changing light, surrounded by new growth and life. Its inscription reads, To Zar-El, who taught us that the greatest preservation comes not from controlling life, but from setting it free to grow in its own way. And to all those who dare to reach across the stars and see not aliens, but friends. The forest around the memorial grows wild and uncontrolled, just as life should be. And on quiet nights, when the stars shine bright overhead, some say they can feel a familiar presence, a touch of consciousness that reminds them that in the vast expanse of space, the strongest force isn't power or control, but the simple, uncontrollable, chaotic beauty of love.